Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Sue Ellam, and I'm founder of Soulfully Connecting. And I have the great pleasure to interview Julia Chai today. Julia's quite an energetic lady. She travels the world as a nomad, and she runs barefoot, where people with shoes fear to tread. Actually, seriously, Julia is a runner. She's been a runner all her life. She's run at international level, and she's also one of our valued authors on Soulfully Connecting. So, Julia, it's lovely talking to you today. Welcome.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you so much. I always love hearing myself being introduced. When you hear yourself introduced by another person, it's such a lovely thing. It's kind of, oh, is that me? I'm an energetic, barefoot nomad. I am, though. That's
absolutely. No word of a lie. So other than that, who are you? Who's Julia Chai?
Well, as you said, I have run all of my life. So I think the foundation of everything has come through the running step, because my life has been one of exploration, spiritual exploration. I know that word is very bandied around now, but essentially from a child, I'm 58 years old, I can remember at 8 years old, exploring life from an inner perspective. And I also knew that running was my art, but I also found that running, I've written a book called Running to Learn, because the running step showed me where I wasn't staying silent within and wasn't honoring the soul expression. Because my running, I'm very good at running. So I was very fast at running. So there was a lot of competition and I wanted to win. And I think striving for excellence and winning is fun, but I got caught up at times when my ego got caught up. So for me, the running step has been very integral in me understanding about myself, about my own spiritual journey. And from that, unexpectedly, because I didn't plan this, all I ever wanted in my life was to run. That was what I dreamed. But from a very young age, from the age of, a teenager, other people came and sought my advice, my counsel, my whatever. And my life unexpectedly became one of teaching, healing, counseling, mentoring. So I think that the two have been very integral and inseparable. And I used to always do trainings in arrears of working with people. My life was in health and fitness. I worked for my coach as a teenager, who had a fitness centre very ahead of his years in the 70s. I then was married the first time to Nige, who was fabulous, and we met running for England, and we had our own fitness centre. But it was always about, I wasn't expecting people to ask me things at a deeper level. So I think, who am I? My orientation is one of my own clearing, my own understanding of the essence of me. From that, the running step and the teaching others has come. I think
I've got to ask a question. Do you think that, I truly believe that you were born to run. There's many people that start running for various reasons, but for them it's a chore, and I know for you it's a joy. So I think that's a difference. When you're born to do something, it comes naturally. But does your running did your running come before your spiritual journey, or did your spiritual journey come before your running, or did they just mesh?
I think my spiritual journey was first. I never think of a time where there wasn't the watcher in me. I was an unusual child and a challenging child to my teachers, because I had my own way, and my father, I think, a child that's on their own walk, a family walk, or up a tree when they're meant to be looking at the flora and fauna in the museum at school. And, I was an explorative child, and I always loved to run. Running I did, but I didn't think of myself as a runner. I just ran everywhere. And the spiritual journey, I was born into a Christian family, so it was very entrenched in my being. My parents were, right from the beginning, their orientation was about the common weal, the commonwealth of everybody else, about church was very big part of my life, but more about that our reason for being on this planet was to become better people. And that was what I was taught. I've evolved, and I'm not a practicing Christian now. I have a different orientation of spirituality, but I think that came first, and my running came out of it. And it was in my running, I read Jonathan Livingston Seagull when I was 16. And that was my first book away from the Bible. I was taking off, and and I remember bravely reading it out, a section of it, in my first assembly at sixth form college, because I was Julia Armstrong then, J for Armstrong. I was volunteered actually, I remember, to do the first assembly, and the first big, and it was 800 people. For me, that was big then. And I stood up and I read the section from Jonathan Livingston Seagull where it says, our whole body from wingtip to wingtip is nothing more than thought itself in a form you can see. Break the chains of your thoughts and you break the chains of your body too. And that spoke to me as an athlete, a very aspiring athlete. By then I wanted to run for England. I hadn't achieved an England best, but I was very top in my age group in the country. But it spoke to me that it wasn't just about pushing. My orientation was to push, which is why there began a dance between ego and spirit that, went a merry dance, I can tell you.
People think that, this is always amuses me, people think that when people go on a spiritual journey, they just kind of wander around kind of aimlessly, and it's the easy option, and it's so much more difficult than just fitting in and going and doing what most people do, go and get a job and just, the spiritual journey's a hard taskmaster.
Yes, and I was aware of it. As I say, I was very active in our church, in that we had a youth group that we used to do lovely joyous songs, and we used to go and perform them in churches, and the youth group was fabulous. But also Dave Eaton, my curate, was amazing. We used to have a Bible study on a Friday, but he taught us to inquire, and he taught us to think for ourselves, and he really released me from the constraints of religion, and he helped us. He was only in his 20s himself, and he released me, to be quite honest, because I left the organised church, and he helped us make our own minds up. I mean, in those days it seems funny now to think of, but we were brought up not to have sex before marriage. It kind of seems rather strange, but it was particularly in a Christian upbringing. And I had a boyfriend when I was 15, and by the time I was 17, we were wanting to make love together, but we were both kind of stuck in this constraints. But I went to talk to Dave with my boyfriend, and he just said we had to make our own mind up. He didn't constrain me, so we did. But he freed me. And so, but it was always, I pored over the Bible to see if Jesus said you shouldn't have sex before marriage. I took my spiritual journey very seriously, and of course I found there were constraints of Christianity didn't suit my free spirit, and that's why I was starting to read other books. And I read a lot of literature, and I read poetry, and I read lots and lots. I read the metaphysical poets, which were lots of wrangling around John Donne, about his sins. When I have done, thou hast not done, for I have more. And he was, so and for me, it was, there was a lot of angst with me between, what I wanted. And I used to wrangle of what happens if God's will isn't my will. And, it was a kind of, it's always been my orientation. It's got much easier, to be honest with you, in terms of how, well, I suppose I'm freer and clearer.
Yeah, it's interesting about the Christian thing, because I was brought up Church of England as well, and going along to, but I was in boarding school, so it's kind of, down by the coast. So I remember, especially in the winter, having to go to church every Sunday and literally sometimes getting blown along. You know, it was really blustery. And just singing these songs mindlessly. There was it wasn't really the council, but there's all these restrictions. And I remember when I was early teens, I was thinking, please God, don't ask me to be a nun. I don't want to be a nun. Please don't ask me to be a nun. And it was like if that was decreed, that was what I had to do. And it was very, again, that's why I say I'm spiritual, not religious, like a lot of people. It's like, it was just too restricting. And it was like, this is the way, you know, I do believe in higher power and all that sort of thing, but it's much more about our communion with it rather than like a father telling us what to do.
Ya te digo. We've just been practicing Spanish
Absolutely.
before we went up.
To non-Spaniards, that means absolutely.
Because I do remember really inquiring. I read the Bible every night for a long time, and I really, really recognised that. I realised that Jesus said, you know, the kingdom of heaven is within you, and I used to really look at that, and now that's more my orientation now, that God is within us, that we are the universe, we are everything, and therefore that's where the responsibility is so huge, and I mean that in a joyous way, for us to clear our inner blocks, our inner pain, our inner darkness, and it's then that reflects out in the world. The way we, like it's a Gandhi quote, isn't it? Change. If we want to change the world, we change ourselves. And I was able to move from the structure and strictness, and as you describe, of constraints. And I can remember when it happened. I lived in Bath, and I was running on the hills, and I stood and looked over the beauty of Bath, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm sure that this energy shouldn't be one where I feel guilty and fearful and constrained. And I literally, from one day to the next, stopped going to church, because I thought, it's got to be an inner thing. This has to be a reflection. All this beauty, that's the truth of us. We are it. We are born of it. And it's when I sort of married up my investigations in the Bible with everything else I'd been branching out and reading, I was like, and then it changed. I mean, it didn't mean the path got particularly easier, but you know, it was a different orientation.
Yeah, because I know that when we were both kind of young and just starting out, there wasn't all the books that there are now, you know, and I used to think that there was something wrong with me because I just couldn't fit in with a lot of what people said, like, and I saw things and saw spirit animals and different things. So, and it was this kind of, there must be something wrong somewhere, because and if somebody told me a lie or something, I knew, and made people very uncomfortable, because at that age I hadn't learned to not say anything, you know. So I kind of called them on it, and they said, no, you're imagining it. So, but there was this feeling of being different, and it wasn't until, I think probably maybe 30 years ago, maybe, when the books started coming out, the self-help books, the spiritual stuff, and then it's like, I'm not crazy after all. There are many people out there. I just hadn't happened to meet any of that at that time. I did get into the spiritual stuff probably when I was consciously, when I was about 19, but I was still floundering my way, you know, because
and the very nature of the Christianity that we were brought into in the schooling was the being told we're wrong. And if you're a sensitive person, then it's very easy to internalize that we're wrong if we're going to think differently. And I think, you know, there was very much, I can remember kneeling down in church going, we're such miserable sinners, so much as to gather up the crumbs under the table. And it's very much that being wrong. So if you start to think differently, you have to break free from the being wrong. And it's very joyous when you read something and you go, oh, that's exactly in alignment with how I've been thinking. And there's a, you know, and then you can start. I think I was, as I said earlier, I was fortunate in that, one, I had Dave, who was just fabulous and really supportive of an inquiring person like me. And also that people started coming to me for, you know, to ask things. And so I had that from a very young age. And like you, I was, you know, intuitive and could pick things up. But because people asked me, it meant that I had to develop that. And then after a while thought, oh, perhaps I must do some training in this if I'm, you know, and yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah, spirituality really is. And I mean, I know that you've been an author on the Soulfully Connected site ever since it went live a few years ago, and in the middle of that, you did a transition, and you went kind of on a sabbatical to just travel and write and different things. So I mean, I know, but I know the viewers won't. What do you do with your days?
Well, it is interesting because, as you said, you know, I've, till May this year, for 40 years, I've worked in people's lives in evolving different ways. And in that time, I have taken 2 sabbaticals, both of 6 months, and both of them, one I used very much on my own development, and I also did a lot of running. And the other one, I wrote my book, Running to Learn. And this one, this May, it's been very different because it was supposed to have ended by now. But what's happening is there's a transition, I'm in a transition. So I stopped working with people in May. I gave them a long run in, obviously, from October. They knew I was going on a sabbatical. And then, so people were ready and, you know, there was a transition. Then in July, I absolutely knew I wasn't going back. So I had to obviously communicate this with them. And I have a wonderful person called Jane who is taking any clients that, you know, that still want to be working. And I have been running more. I started to run barefoot last September, so 14 months ago, which I could talk about in a minute, obviously. But so in the time since my sabbatical began, I've been running more again. And obviously, as we said, running's been informed a lot of my life. And to be running barefoot is incredible. But I can, as I say, we can perhaps go back to that because I've been writing. I've been writing every day. I also started doing a vlog, which we were talking about before we went on air, that I'm really enjoying now. And it's a daily thing. At first I had to stretch to just be there every day saying, hello, here I am.
Good morning.
Yeah. And also in that time, I also write for my, you know, I write relationship articles for I wrote a book called Girlfriend for a Year, and I'm keeping that, I'm developing that a bit more because I want to keep, I'm so interested. Relationship has been the kind of, you know, foundation of my work, really. And then in July, I think it was, I don't know how it came about, Sue, but this thing came about that I'd run across Spain. But I've been learning Spanish, of course. So I've been learning Spanish, and I love that, and I love Spain. And then it came into me, I think my feet decided that we'd run across Spain barefoot. So that's been gathering momentum. It really has. And I'm going to be running from March next year from Suances to Almuneca, across Spain barefoot. And I'm going to be doing it really as a celebration of life, joining together, bringing people together already. As you know, Sue, there's been a kind of growing enthusiasm. Lots of people want to come and run sections with me. I'm having a birthday party at the end. I'm going to be 59 on the 12th of May, and I'm finishing that day, so I'm throwing a big party. So essentially it's about raising, you know, it's about relationship, about everything I'm about living fully, about joining together. There is a charity I'm raising money for, which is the Friends of Sussex Hospices, and it resonates with me because of Kathy, my friend, who's the chair, who I've known 20 years, but also because I'm so interested in dying, that we leave our bodies as easily as possible. And I think we do that by living as fully, truly from our soul as we can, soulfully, and connecting so soulfully. So for me, raising awareness and money for end-of-life care kind of is a raising awareness for life and living. And as you know, I've said this in my live broadcasts on Facebook, that there's research that the biggest regret when people are coming near their end of their lives and they're about to leave their body, that they really regret not having been true to themselves, that they have lived to others' expectations and not been true. So that's occupying my time, as you know, and I'm not sure. I know that my essence is to work in people's lives. I can see that that's still going on. I think that over the next few months, how it kind of, you know, forms will reveal itself, she says. So yes, so that's now at the moment. Lots of barefoot running.
Yeah, so I know that you're doing a lot of training and sprinting up steps, and oh god, I just get tired just watching it. I tell you, I thought, oh god, you know, does she ever sit down?
I'm one of these people. I'm very run philosophique. I love running, but I also love sitting, drinking coffee and not doing anything. And the thing is, yeah, you're right, Sue's watched my vlogs. And of course they're quite active because I'm running about.
She runs up and she can actually still talk, you know, and it's like, oh.
Yeah.
So are there, you know, it's interesting about kind of this Born to Run, because, you know, I can ask you why you do what you do, but I don't think you really have a choice, do you? Was there anything else that you thought, oh, you know, if I didn't do this, I could go and do that?
No,
everything
I don't.
just seems to be very ordained.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm very much I love, and I'm going to get this quote wrong, but I love it, the Ramana quote that says, what is destined to happen will happen, however much you do try to do to prevent it. What is not destined to happen will not happen, however much you try to make it. Therefore, the answer is to be silent. And to me, that speaks of the life of meditation, of being able to get to the place of silence within, where our true path will emerge. I think that it is possible to make things happen from the mind, but they're not going to be flowing. They're not going to have that same resonance. And I don't think the running path has always called me back to it. There's times when I've thought, oh, perhaps I'll do triathlon, but I never have. And I've been injured a lot when I've wondered whether that was it, but my body's always come back. I think that, yeah, I was born to run, and that in the running step, I've learned so much. I think I ran barefoot as a child. I was born in West Africa, so that was a very, you know, bare child, let alone barefoot, just a naked child. And then in England, when we came back, I remained barefoot. And even when I joined an athletics club when I was 15, and you can remember it was a grass track in Surrey, and I ran barefoot then. I put shoes on to start as my running got more serious, but they were very light shoes. And then I got quite chronically injured through my international career because I pushed very hard. I don't think there's any need to get injured. I think it was a reflection of where I wasn't in alignment with my spirit, and that I was pushing for results. And I used to know that. But of course, as we said, the spiritual path isn't necessarily easy. You can know it and be off slightly or a lot. And then in 2000, I had a lot of chronic injury, and I was, I had orthotics in my shoes. And I vowed then that I would find a way, because I realized that the pain in my body, well, for me, I felt the pain in my body was very representative of unresolved stuff in my life and in my running life. So I set off then really, again, going deeper into how I could release myself. And over the years, I got freer and freer. And 10 years ago, I was very attracted to run barefoot again, because I read Born to Run by Chris McDougall, as we spoke about, and I interviewed him. I was doing a podcast then, and it made all sense to me, but my body wasn't ready, or rather, it probably might have been, but I pushed too hard. So I would get pains in my ankles and calves. And so it's really only in the last year, and I knew 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I'd hurt my knee, and I was walking up a beach in Eastbourne, and I remember hearing an inner voice saying, go right back to basics, go right back to basics. So I didn't until just a year ago, or over a year ago, again, I was injured. My back was hurting. I'd run a Zen running camp in the mountains, which had been amazing, but I'd been racing up and down mountains, kind of looking after my Zen runners, and they were different age group, different abilities. And at the end of the week, my back was hurting. And we went to Lanzarote, and I wasn't running because I was recovering my back. And I saw the surfers on the beach in their bare feet. And I was like, oh, I wonder. And that was when I set off again. And I really did go back to basics completely and utterly. I backed right off. And I took things really at the pace of my feet. But actually, I listened at the deeper level. I was more ready at the spiritual level to completely let go at last, after 50 years, of the part of me that was pushing to win approval, to look for something outside myself, to get my dad's approval, all the things that take us off course. My dad's been dead 25 years, but you know, it's still the thing to clear. And I realized it was at last that piece of healing was complete. And now it feels like I'm on a completely new journey. I don't exactly know what it holds. Everything's different, as we said. My work, my everything. I'm running differently. I'm obviously at that point. I'm 58, aren't I? I keep forgetting, but I'm in that Saturn return thing, aren't I? So there's lots going. That Saturn return thing. She says another way I put thing. So I know that the shedding, a big, particularly as I'm, always my orientation has been one of the soul. I think even more so that I'm aware of letting go of everything that I thought was me.
And I think also because you've been called to help people, I think sometimes you have to go through more. So, because if you hadn't had a tough time, how can you help others? I mean, I know that it seems to be, especially in the Western world, this push to go. There's no time. You've got, if you aren't there in 6 months, you're not meant to be going there. Try something else, and it's just this constant. And if you're slower and you write things organically, then it's like, I remember seeing on a Facebook group or something saying, if you procrastinate, you're lazy, and it's like, what a judgment! It's like, unless you're push, then obviously you're not doing anything. But the best things that are the things that just kind of come to you. Because I know, I lived in the Algarve for a couple of years. I had a friend there, and we went over to Gibraltar, and we met up with a friend of hers. She said, oh, he's not like you. He's always out there, can I get this, that, and the other? And I thought, oh, and I thought, obviously, and I didn't know if she meant it quite like that. But then I thought about it, and I thought, well, actually, she's not wrong, because I'm a great believer that the right door opens at the right time. So why would I be running around breaking all these doors down, when all I had to do is ask and just say, don't, open the door that's meant for me. Because
Absolutely. Sometimes
people are trying so hard, and this is where they get, again, injuries and things like that. And they haven't got the patience.
Yeah, I absolutely hear you, because the interesting thing for me was I never, in all of my life, have never pushed in my work, ever. And my work's been, I've always flowed, and it's always been a space that I've held other people in, and it's just been something that I'm never ambitious with, and it's always been there, and it's never ever it's interesting. And I would see that, and I would watch that, and yet my running, all my stuff was kind of tied up in, and I knew that if I didn't push, it would all be fine. But of course, there was the thing to work out there. But it didn't. I didn't have it in friendships. I didn't have it in work. I didn't have it. I'm not competitive in other things. Running, I'm not competitive with people, but I was always striving for good times and all of this. And I mean, over the years, you compete with so many different people. It's fun. It's just a fun thing. I always feel particularly competing at top level, we'd all be on abroad together on trips, and you have a good time and you're all doing the best you can. But I think that now what's such joy for me is that I'm really relaxed about whatever my work is, because that will evolve. I'm relaxed about going barefoot across Spain. I'm relaxed about all of those things. But what I really see is a few years ago, oh God, a few. Funny, isn't it? You say a few, 12, 14.
It goes very quick.
Oh, no, I remember I was on a weekend course, so just a shiatsu kind of experience. It was a really good course. But I woke up in the night at 3 a.m, and this voice said to me, be careful, be really conscious of the direction you choose, because others will follow you. And I really, really took that on board. I was like, okay, because if I'm going to do something where I go, come on, everybody, I've got to be absolutely sure. And I never did anything. I mean, I did my work, and I did, I wrote for a magazine, and I did running. I mean, I did lots. I've always had things happening, but I never did anything like, right, let's do. And now I've said, come on, let's run across Spain, and it's going into a nice party, a fiesta, joining together. I'm absolutely certain, and I'm also absolutely certain the push dynamic's gone, so I can lead, and I won't go and get injured, and I won't crash, and I won't, and I'm aware that I'm paradoxically, I'm strong enough in my gentleness now to be able to carry this on.
Yeah, because it's having influence can be quite a dangerous thing, and that's as you know, I've been a tarot reader for many years, and I always remember one client coming to me, and I don't remember obviously her reading, but I do remember this. She got this kind of new beginnings, and she said, does that mean I have to leave my husband? I said, no, nothing like that. She said, oh, that's good, because I quite like him. And I thought, what if I said yes? I mean, that really showed me the kind of that some people are just trying to find their way, and there's no judgment about that, because we've all been there, just trying to floundering and trying to find our own way, and we take things on as kind of gospel. But so you have to be very careful, and and with yourself as well. I mean, you're extremely fit, you've been running for years, etc. But what would you say to somebody that wanted to start running or running barefoot? Maybe sometimes people run because they want to get fit, they want to lose weight and things like that. So obviously it's a different thing, because you're very light. So running on your bare feet, you're not taking the pounding that somebody maybe a stone or two heavier would, so what would your advice be?
Well, I would say that it's so counter. I mean, I think you read magazines and people say take it slowly, but I don't think anybody in our Western world knows how slowly we need to take things, and that it's very much about the path unfolding in each step. And that I still think that the big marathon boom has been fabulous for a lot of people. It's given them camaraderie, the best day of their life. It's given them purpose. It's given them focus, all sorts of things. But it's not very healthy for the body. I've seen people pushing their bodies way beyond, way underprepared. And as I say, I'm saying this kind of tempering it with, I recognize how exciting it is for people. But I would say that really and truly, it's a much slower and much longer process than is ever advertised, because I recognize as well that our society is very much about selling things, and they want to sell magazines and shoes, and magazines that say, okay, you've got to wait 3 years till you run a marathon isn't going to sell. So I think that, the truth is, I believe that people need a lot more preparation. If they were truly to train for a marathon, and they, as you say, maybe they're a stone or two or three or four more than I am, then there's nothing that's going to stop them being able to get in amazing shape. But it's got to be very, very slow. I even said that actually, a vlog I'm putting up tomorrow, that there's no reason we shouldn't find the movement in our body again and find its agility and find its fitness. But it's got to be that we enjoy every day of it, because it could be really and truly a 5-year process. And I think that our society doesn't particularly lend itself to that. So my advice would be, find a way of doing it that you really, really, really enjoy. And this is running with shoes. Find a way that you love it, and that it's a lifestyle, and that it's something that is going to be forever. It isn't I'm going to do this and stop, because really and truly it's a forever thing. So when I ran my gym, for instance, we had our gym for 7 years, and the membership was repeat. And some of the people in the gym would only come to the gym once a week, but they came every single week. And my husband, Nige, was amazed, because he was a PE teacher, and he was amazed how fit people could get on once a week. And that was it. It's consistency. It's much, much, much better to consistently do something. With running, you probably need to do a little bit more than once a week, but again, start with walking. It's just so much slower. The conditioning work's very important. The stretching work, all that it's a whole package. And with barefoot running, it's that magnified, because if barefoot, with me, I took a long time. And as you say, I'm light, I'm a natural runner. I ran barefoot before, but I've taken such a long time to train my body and my feet back. So I would say when people start it's more about thinking about themselves, about, anything that's contradictory, within themselves, anything in their lifestyle, anything in their, makeup. Because when I worked in my 20s, I learned this, that when I worked programs out for people, I learned that it had to be integral to them, really integral to their lifestyle, their personality, their body, their history. And yeah, it takes a long time. I would write very different running magazines to the ones that I've written.
Yeah, maybe that's something to do, because I know that people don't want, especially when it gets into the emotional stuff, people don't want to go there, and it's so much easier just to pop a pill. I've got a friend who he's a great adventurer. He's always climbing mountains and all these sorts of things. And he was saying some years ago he had problems with his knees, and he didn't have the patience to wait for them to heal properly. So he had operations on both his knees, and he said it's the worst thing he's ever done, because there was recurring problems afterwards, because he was impatient to get fit and to get moving again.
What you said so key is absolutely that, or it is about the emotional clearing, really. I was talking with Anadi, my husband, today when we were running, and I'd said in my blog about there's no reason we shouldn't, get our bodies to move again. But there's also the emotional clearing, because a lot of the reasons I pushed too hard were to do with my emotional wounding and hurts. And so actually the patterns that people are in when I know you know this, of course, but that to go into them is probably necessary. But of course, that can be too difficult for a lot of people, and I realise that. So therefore, it's almost giving them a different kind of structure to work in, because it's more gentle. But if it will bring, anything we do will bring up those hurts and those patterns. But as you said, I really recognise the more I'm on this planet that it's not possible for a lot of people, and I understand that.
Yeah, and that's their life journey. That's their their path.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what are the challenges you face every day, kind of traveling around the world with your backpack? A life that most people would envy.
I can fit it under the thing in the plane. I think immediately springs to mind is washing, not my body, the clothes, because not always are we in places. Nadi took the washing today. We found a place in Gozo and then Nadi took it all. But of course, if you only got a little amount of clothes, you're going through, it's particularly, if we're in a really hot place, which we are sometimes, you're only wearing vests and shorts. It's, you can kind of hand wash it quickly, but in the mountains it was colder and I've only got a few clothes. So that's a very practical thing that I noticed that, you know, you're always having to find someone to wash your clothes. That's, as I say, that's just a practical thing. What I've found is we've been doing it for 4 years now, and I think it cleared a lot for me because at the beginning I would, Nadi is different to me, but I'd land in a new place and I'd have a beautiful and amazing it was. I'd have an adjustment period and I'd often feel tearful. And I could hear myself. So I'm very practiced that if you say the same thing over again, it's probably not. It's just, you know, I'd go, oh, I love Eastbourne. I like the Downs. I was happy there. What have I done? And I'd do that. And Nadi's wonderful. He would just listen. He wouldn't try to rescue it or anything. And sometimes he'd say, can I do anything? I go, no, I'll be fine. Anyway, that happened. But actually every time we got to, and it was 20 minutes of kind of feeling lost, and then give me a day and I was off. And then the same thing would happen. And it happened, that carried on for a year, maybe even 18 months at the beginning. But Nadia and I both got used to it. And I'd listen and I'd hear it. And I'd go, oh, this is just, I'm just clearing. And I think it was just, you know, I think as human beings, we often perceive we need safety. And I'm not saying people, you know, we've all got different journeys. For me, this nomadic journey has helped me clear that need for some perceived security. As I say, I'm not saying everybody needs to be nomads for that. This is my own experience. So I now feel that's cleared and I can go anywhere and I'm where I am and I don't have that. And that's been a really freeing thing for me. I'm not saying I'll always be a nomad. Who knows what's going to happen? You know, could easily I'll be in one place. So that was my challenge because I knew I want to go home, but I had no home to go to. And I knew I didn't want to. I'd say to Nadia, I want to go home, but I've got no home to go to. And I don't want to. I know I've got to keep going because as we were saying earlier, my soul, I knew I had to keep going, however hard it was. And at times it was hard. I knew that for some reason I was living this life and being able to live with, you know, nothing. And we've had the other thing is that when we first started, Anadi had a company that was just taking off and he'd won an award and it was all very exciting. And then it went very wrong because there was I won't tell the story now, but there was a big drama with his partner and, you know, it all ended. So we had just started off with this promise of Anadi with a business that then wasn't there. And so therefore for the last, I stunned at watching him go from one day to the next when he was sort of cut out the company, the next day start on iSports analysis, which he's doing now and has been doing since then. So it's been a 4-year, it's taking off. But that's been, obviously he ran out of his flat money. All that money was spent on the business. And, you know, so it's, well, I won't, again, it's a long story, but we kept going. We knew that even though that was happening, we had to keep going. We did, because, you know, we could have gone, oh, we need to go back to England and we need to get work. But what was amazing was my work followed me. People, you know, it's probably one of the reasons why I've needed a sabbatical, because actually I worked more on the road, more on Skype. People came for intensives. I went back to England quite a lot. And I actually worked more in the 3 years of first being a nomad than I probably ever worked in my life with people. So, which again was absolutely wonderful, but I definitely had to be, you know, we'd arrive somewhere. I remember arriving in Marseille, 7 minutes to go to find the internet, to get myself sorted, to be in front of somebody for a session, absolutely as if once I had to leap out of the car in Nice. Luckily it was a phone session because I hadn't got to our accommodation and I had a session with somebody and I had to go and find someone quickly and go, hello, and be present. And I think so we've had obviously that, but now kind of past challenges. Well, that's why I started with the washing, because I think it's only washing.
But what you've actually said is kind of a much more real view of the current phase of throw your job in, come and join us and travel the world with your laptop. And they always have pictures of people with idyllic beaches or scenes behind them and all this sort of thing. And you think, it can't be that easy. You know, it's kind of, yeah.
It's been hard. It's been amazing. I think Anadi's and my relationship has deepened and deepened and deepened because we have, you know, definitely he's been amazing, but he's worked, you know, he's created this platform, iSports Analysis. It's awesome. It's taking off now, but it's been 4 years, you know. I think that's quite normal amount of time, but we've 15-hour days, finding internet, having trouble with internet. You know, the internet's got better over the last 4 years, practically everywhere we go. But I remember us being in Costa Rica, and the internet wasn't working in the house, so we went and sat on this step in a rainstorm because he had to get something done. And you know, it's been, I think he and I are very very good at keeping in touch with our own processes, not projecting onto each other, and therefore we can support each other. And we're also not worriers, and so that's not been something we have to work with. And we are very strong people, both, you know, emotionally and physically. So we've obviously had illness, we've had tummy trouble. I've seen more doctors. I've had bronchitis. I've had some terrible amoebic thing we both had. We've been bitten by a spider. I've seen more doctors in the last 4 years than ever in my life, foreign ones.
the healthy living, but it is so. But it's so important not to get fearful and change your direction because things get hard. Because I know when I went to Portugal, I mean, everyone thought I was crazy. I didn't speak the language. I was going off to do a job in communication. I was going to actually go and do tarot readings and graphology. I'd kind of paid up front for an apartment in a Portuguese place where I had only about half a dozen people spoke English in the whole place, you know, and I arrived there and everyone thought I was absolutely bonkers. And every time it got really difficult, then it was like, I thought, is this a time I'm meant to go back to London? And then I suddenly get offered cheap accommodation, or something always happened to just keep me there. And I ended up being there just over 2 years. So, wow. You know, but it was when things got really difficult, as long as I listened to my intuition and I didn't get into panic, as long as I didn't get fearful, because as soon as you get fearful, your intuition, it just, everything cuts off and you just feel this kind of your stomach turning over, you know. And
I'm very practiced at the physical, like you've just expressed, the stomach turning over grip. I know never to act out of that. Yeah. And I know that's the clear. And like you, I absolutely know my intuition, and I've known, however hard this has been at times, I've known to keep going, and I've absolutely known it. And, you know, I had times where I'd say to Anadi, I'm kind of feeling like I don't want to be here, but there's nowhere else I want to be. I don't know. And he would say to me, that's a good thing, because you're obviously just, you know, you're obviously just working through something. And, you know, for me, he's a freer traveling being than me. I as a child used to be sick before going on holiday. So it's obviously something I've needed to clear. And I say now, I hit the ground running and I'm just happy wherever I am. And that's been a joyous thing, because it feels I'm more in myself. But you're absolutely, what you say is, you know, I'd know if I needed to come back and set a home up somewhere. I'd know if it was an intuitive thing, but it hasn't. It's like I'd know if I needed to stop running, and at the moment, this life calls me to keep going. And obviously, run across Spain.
And I think north to south is actually longer than it is from east to west, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, it looks like it's on the map. Yeah.
So I think you've covered a lot of the joys of it, but are there any other joys you've got, you know, besides having clean washing every now and again?
I absolutely love. Well, I love eating out. Do you know? I have always loved eating out. We do a lot of eating out in lovely local restaurants and lovely. I love all the different foods. So I also love breakfast. I wasn't a very good breakfast person in my past life. I would run and I'd often have a protein drink of fruit or something. And and now I have such good breakfasts all around the world. And it's just a delight. And I love that. You know, Nadia and I are often sort of like we're dating because we separate in the day and we work at whatever we're working at and do. But then we always go out, if we're in an apartment, Nadia cooks, not me. And that's fun. And so I love that. I love the friends I've made around the world. We've made friends in Greece. That Nadia found his colleague Dwight, who we went to South Africa there. We love the Salvunas family. We love the guys in Cassiope. Hello, anybody who's watching. We just love you. So that's been a delight. We love. I love my Spanish friends, Maggie and Jack, obviously, who plotting the route for me. Mary Carmen, who's teaching me Spanish. All our friends in Almuneca, Teresa and Emiliano and David and Pablo and Murray, and so I don't want to miss any of them now. Emmy, Manuel. I mean, they're just part of my life now. So I'm a real people person, as you know, and so and everywhere we've met people in other countries. I don't want to miss any of you out because it's a very special thing that for me, being able to have a global family and have friends everywhere, and in that connection everywhere. I love the food. I love being in the sun, and I don't particularly. We often go slightly out of season. So here we're in Gozo, so it's 22 degrees, and often I'm in Spain, and we were in England a lot in the summer because when it's really hot, it's not quite so great for running, and also there's a lot of tourists, and I'm not, it's nicer out of season. So I love the blue skies and the sun. I have to say, I really enjoy that. Me too. It's very different, isn't it? It's very different. I love traveling. I love aeroplane traveling. I don't know why. I just love airports, and I love being on a plane, and I enjoy moving. I enjoy. I'm not a sightseer. I like being in a land, so I like the feel. I like running. We run around Gozo. I see all the sights, but I'm not really. I will occasionally go, and we went in Marseille and sat in walked around the beautiful cathedral, which I can't remember the name of. Shows I'm not a great sightseer, but it was lovely.
Soaking up atmosphere, isn't it? It's soaking up the atmosphere. Yeah. I know. I spent a lot of my childhood in the Middle East and Far East, and that's a kind of heat that I like. And every time I hear anyone say, "Oh, winter's coming," my heart kind of sinks. I go, "Oh no."
Of course, I understand. I was born in West Africa, so you're born in the sun or you're in the sun.
Yeah.
And I like the what it's done to me. How I feel clearer. I feel different. I like not being in society, but being, kind of, in it, but not of it somehow. I like being able because energetically places obviously have a certain hold, and you can get caught up in the whole patterns and energy of a place, and I rather like passing through. I really feel that. And I remember saying to my friend Jim, who I had coffee with, I don't know if you saw the vlog when he was showing us his cleats, but
yes, I did. It's funny.
But Jim, who's a great friend, who we trained for ultras together, so we ran 5-hour runs. We ran, as we said in the vlog, 12 hours a week together at one point. We were training to run a long way. And I remember saying to him then, I said how I didn't think, if I wasn't doing my work with people, because I used to live on the kind of edge of Eastbourne and people would come to me, I said I wasn't sure I would be able to stay in society because I had to close quite a lot of gates down. I love people, but I'd have to close kind of gates of my own expansiveness if I wasn't working. And I said I probably need to leave society. And I said that before I met Anadi. So obviously intrinsically and intuitively I knew I needed to be kind of sort of out somehow.
And you must find well, not necessarily, but I would have assumed you'd find that now that you're not haven't got the restrictions of a schedule when you have to be talking to people and things, or have to be in a certain place at a certain time, or people meeting you. You're actually able to immerse yourself more in the country, because, you know, I mean, I work from home, and I love the fact that I can choose what I do that day. I don't, other than kind of appointments I make, like this interview and things like that. Other than that, I can do what I want. I can work 12 hours straight, or I can watch Netflix. But it's how I feel. I mean, I don't have weekends. Weekends don't mean anything to me at all. But it's, yeah, I know. But there's this kind of being able to immerse yourself in your life, and, you know, without interruption, I suppose.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, because even though obviously probably you would resonate with this, I absolutely love people. So when I was working with people, they never didn't get, you know, 100, 200% of me. It would be absolute. So, but what happened, because I was doing so much, I could be in a hotel room somewhere in Spain and literally be all day long in the room on Skype. And my own life got a bit squeezed out, or a lot squeezed out. My running got squeezed out. My writing got squeezed out. I didn't have time I didn't have time to write for you. I didn't have time to write my own blog. You know, I didn't have time to run. And I realized that wasn't right. And also it wasn't modeling what I was teaching people to live their lives. And now, yes, I absolutely, there's a freedom. And what I've noticed about me is there's this sort of slightly mad teenagers returned. And I notice it in my vlogs, I notice it in my humor, I notice I'm laughing a lot more. I'm always been a laughy person. All my clients would probably say I'm a laughy person. I can see I've got more of the sense of the ridiculous. I find myself, even as I say, when I'm chatting to myself in my vlogs, imagining myself streaking across Gatwick Airport. And, you know, I have all these, and I can see that is a lightness has come back
in November with bare feet. You can imagine. No wonder you were getting looks. Oh, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you.
I've loved it.
Yeah,
we tried. This is our fourth time, isn't it?
I know.
Me losing my voice and the lightning taking my internet out. We've it was obviously, this is the day.
Absolutely. We've made it. So anybody that wants to get in touch with Julia, maybe if a kind of end of life care is something that's you're passionate about, if you're interested in donating, could you give us your details, Julia, so people can get in touch with you?
Yes, the website that is saying all about my run across Spain, which is probably the best one, just to, because I've obviously got all sorts of presence on the web, but the one for the run across Spain is barefootacrossspain.com. So that's it, barefootacrossspain.com. Actually, if they are interested in my vlogging and blogging, that is Soul's Journey, soul as in the soles of my feet, soulsjourney.com, and the vlogging is soulsjourneytv.com. So those are my daily, I do a daily blog and a daily blog, but my run across Spain is barefootacrossspain.com, and that's got everything on it. It's got the route, it's got the donate page, it's got about all the live videos that Sue's there and Facebook. Love talking to you. It's fab, really good.
It's been wonderful, and it's also nice to get the marrying up of the spiritual and the physical as well. You know, people.
I said to Anadi, that's why I was really delighted to be talking with you, because I knew that I would have the space to communicate that. And I really was really glad I could do that, because that's not always something that people would want to hear. Yeah. So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And well, maybe on your run down Spain, we can have another chat.
Yes.
And you can
Yes.
tell me how your feet are holding up.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, absolutely. That would be fabulous. I'd love that.
Okay. So we'll think about kind of early in the year. You know, well, when you get going. Okay, between March and May, that'd be good.
Fabulous. Really love that. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, Julia, again, it's absolutely delightful talking to you. For anybody that's watching, as I said, Julia is an author on Soulfully Connecting. She's got lots of interesting things that she talks about there, and some videos as well. You can find everything else on her vlog, and well, she's got so much stuff going on. So anyway. I said, you know, I'm just glad that she sat down so we can talk. I was half expecting you to start sprinting around the room, you know, halfway through. But anyway, so it's goodbye from myself and from Julia. And
yes, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, and goodbye, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Bye.